Hey YouTube, Mike the Alpha Hoarder here. Thanks for joining me today. This is not a video I had planned to make, but the news dropped very recently about this new collector's edition set that Wizards is releasing, and the Magic community is blowing up in a whole bunch of different ways, or, well, I guess they're blowing up in the same way, but for different reasons. So I've been giving it a little thought, and I got a couple prompts about it. And I figured that I would chime in on the subject. So I was jotting down some notes, and this might be a little bit of a longer video, but there's kind of a lot to look at. So I'm going to break it into three parts. First, I want to talk about what the product actually is, and I'd like to look at some numbers with you guys, because I think there's some interesting things to take apart with the distributions of rares and so forth, and what you're getting for your money. So we'll talk about that first. Then I want to talk about the implications of this collector's edition on old ABU sets. And then finally I want to talk about the implications of this on the reserved list in general. So that's the agenda. Move a little quickly so it doesn't go too long. And yeah, we'll see what we get through. So first, the product itself. I'm sure you've all seen it, but basically this is a collector's edition product. So it stands in direct confrontation with collector's edition and international edition, with those two markets. It is a non-tournament legal, black bordered, original art set. And I have every reason to think that people will play with these cards, just like they do with the collector's edition ones. And so, you know, the portion of the CE and IE market that is comprised of players is likely to split, because those players now have more supply to choose among. But we'll come back to that. So first, let's talk a little bit about the cards. So for $1,000, you get 4 packs. And what's in those 4 packs? Well, I think the most interesting thing is going to be the rares. So in one box, you get 4 modern frame rares. That's 1 slot per pack, 4 packs. In addition to that, you have a 30% chance in each of 4 additional retro slots to get a rare. So call it 5 rares total. 4 modern, 1.2 retros. But let's keep digging into that. Oh, come on. Taped shut. My least favorite thing. Okay, so this set is based on the beta print run, just like the original collector's edition was. And that print run had 117 rares. Now they've stated that they're omitting 4 of them. Contract from Below, Demonic Attorney, Dark Pact, and Crusade, I believe. So that's 113 rares that will be available. They've also noted that the dual lands are going to be twice as frequent as any other non-dual rare. So the way I'm interpreting that is basically, if we imagine a print sheet, instead of 113 cards on the sheet, on the rare sheet, there's going to be 123 cards. So that's the 113 plus another 10 duels. So that means the odds of getting any particular rare in a rare slot are 1 out of 123 for the non-dual land rares. The odds of getting any dual land in a rare slot are about 1 in 62. Okay, I want to keep digging into that. And as we go, I'm going to call out the amount of money you'd need to spend in 30th edition anniversary boxes to get a 50-50 shot at pulling a particular card. The reason for that is because that marks where the EV is neutral for that particular card. So for example, if you have a 50-50 chance of pulling a $500 card, right, and that box cost you $500, well then your EV is neutral. that is a game that you could theoretically play all day, right? There is no house edge. It's an even money game. And on the other hand, if you have a 50-50 chance of pulling a card worth $500 and the box costs you more than $500, you're operating at a loss. If the box costs you less than $500, then you're operating at a gain. And so that's the reason I'm breaking it out like that. And I'm going to base this on the current pricing of collector's edition cards. Now, I think obviously these cards, the singles, will not price exactly the same. First of all, those prices I expect to drop, right? We effectively are going to have more supply that is directly competing with a significant portion of that market. So it makes sense that collector's edition and international edition prices will drop somewhat. And it's also not necessarily the case that the price is going to split itself with these 30th edition cards. I mean, there is still something to the old, more nostalgic versions. But, some change is inevitable. But for the purposes of approximating, let's just go with the current pricing. So out of all of the collector's edition cards, just looking at TCG Player's average market listing, only 20 of them are worth more than $500, and that is the Power 9, the Dual Lands, and Chaos Orb. Pretty clean card. Very nice. I mentioned this guy before. I've picked up a couple batches of cards from him. He's a dealer out of Italy. Most of his stuff is priced a little bit too close to market, so I don't think I'm going to be going too deep into the stuff he's got. But I did pick up a couple things I wanted. Take a look at these while I ramble. Okay, so collector's edition cards, current prices. You've got your Black Lotus, around $5,000. You've got your Moxes, about $1,500 each. Your other power cards, about $1,500 each. Your Dual Lands are about $500 each, and your Chaos Orbs about $500. All right, so let's keep those numbers in mind, and let's take a look at what we get here. In a box, in a $1,000 30th anniversary box, you have, I guess I'll put some of this on the screen, so you have 20 out of 123 chance of pulling any particular duel. So that's 16.2% per slot. So 4 slots in that box. You have a 64.8% chance of pulling a modern framed dual land, which is actually pretty decent. About 2/3 of the boxes will have that. And then with your retro slots, you've got a 19.4% chance of pulling a retro framed dual land. So it's about 1 in 5 boxes will have it. So overall, 84% chance of getting some kind of dual land in one of these collector's boxes, which isn't bad. For Moxes, you've got a 5 in 123 chance per slot. That's 4%. So modern frame, you've got a 16% chance of getting one out of every 6 boxes. Or retro frame, you've got a 4.8% chance of getting one. That's 1 in 21 boxes. So overall, 20.8%. So that's about 1 in 5 boxes will have some kind of Mox. So that means you have to spend $2,500 in 30th edition anniversary boxes to get a 50-50 chance of pulling a Mox. So you have to spend $2,500 and then you'll be on even money to pull a $1,500 card. So that's a pretty nasty house edge against you. The other power cards, except for Lotus, so your Time Twister, Time Walk, Ancestral, that's 3 cards out of 123, 2.4% chance. So in the whole box, across all the slots, you've got a 9.6% chance for the modern frame version of that, 2.9% chance for the retro frame. Overall, 12.6%. So that's 1 in 8 boxes. So you would have to spend $4,000 to get a 50-50 shot at pulling one of those 3 power cards. So that's $4,000 to be even money for a $1,500 card. Once again, Terrible house edge. And then the Lotus. 1 in 123 per slot. So that's a 0.8% chance. Across the entire box, it gives you 3.2% in modern frame. So 1 in 31 boxes. 0.96% in retro frame. So that's 1 out of 104 boxes will have the retro frame Black Lotus. Overall, 4.1% chance, so that's going to be 1 in 24 boxes. In other words, you would have to spend $12,000 to get even money, to get a 50-50 chance to pull the Black Lotus, which in today's CE prices is worth $5,000. So $12,000 for even money at $5,000. That is a terrible line. So that's interesting. I wanted to point that out in case people are sort of chasing particular cards. But what's actually interesting is all of those cards are in play at once. So if you actually want to know the expectation value, we need to do a little bit of math here. So again, using the TCG player prices, in a $1,000 box, you've got an 84% chance of pulling a dual land, a $500 dual land, plus a 20.8% chance of pulling a $1,500 mox, plus a 12.6% chance of pulling one of those other power cards, $1,500 card, plus a 4.1% chance of pulling a $5,000 Black Lotus. So if you add that up, the EV on this box is actually 1,126. And that's not accounting any of the other cards, but I'm happy to ignore those because they're so illiquid. But just looking at the Power 9, the Moxes, I didn't even put Chaos Orb in there, did I? But that's $1,100 on a $1,000 box. So that EV is upside down. And I suspect that something along those lines was the math that Wizards did to actually price this thing. But do not go running to buy it. There is no way that an inverted EV is going to hold. It explicitly means that either the prices of the cards are going to collapse from under it, or the box price is going to collapse, or both. So either way, predicting the upside potential before we know which of those corrections is going to occur is very risky. So a couple last thoughts I want to talk about that before we hit the impact of the other things. But just on this price, it's just absurd. Again, don't read too far into that inverted EV. That's based on prices that are not going to hold, and it's assuming that these 30th edition versions would come into parity with the old CEIE versions, and I don't actually believe that to be the case. So the price is just absurd, EV notwithstanding. They said it's a product for collectors, but it's packaged as a product for players. It's packaged into booster packs that you open, as if it's meant to be drafted. And I could see it being awesome to draft, but the price is prohibitive for that too. It's sort of useless as a draft product. Collector's edition and international edition, I showed that previously on the channel. You would buy the box and it was the complete set. And you're spending whatever you're spending. I think it was like $50 at the time. And you get the full set. That is not what this product is. So they say it's for collectors. They price it, I guess, for collectors, but then they package it and distribute it sort of for players. I'm really just not sure what's going on here. And for the amount of money that we're talking, you're really in range for some of the original cards. So I'm just not sure what they're going for here. I'm going to want my Sarah Angel, out of this. I want my Demonic Tutor. By the way, I'm happy to see that they added the pentagram back in on the Tutor and on Unholy Strength. But anyway, there will be some collector demand. You know, people are going to want these cards. I want some of these cards. But I really can't see a good reason to go for that sealed box. You know, unless you just want to roll the dice. It is a extremely speculative play. And then, what's the upside on it, right? From $1,000, how high can it realistically go? You know? I mean, people that can afford this, you know, now at $1,000, let alone if the price goes up, they have access to the ABU stuff. And so, you know, why is this more expensive than that? I don't know. And what would have to happen to the individual cards to support a price more than that? It doesn't seem very likely to me. Now, you know, maybe 30 more years from now, assuming they don't do this every 5 years from now on, you know, maybe that sealed box will be worth a lot. I don't know. But again, it seems particularly speculative and therefore particularly risky. And so, you know, I would not recommend buying these unless it's 100% money that you're willing to put on the roulette wheel and see what happens. And, you know, you might do very well, but you might lose it all. And, you know, if you do that, acknowledge, I think, to yourself at least, that you're gambling rather than investing, which is fine. You know, if you got the money, go ahead and gamble. But yeah, there's definitely some problems with the fundamentals that I just can't reconcile right now. Okay, so that's the product itself. Let's talk about the impact on ABU, Collector's Edition, and International Edition. So what does a product like this mean for those old sets? Well, the impact on CE and IE I mentioned. And it's potentially large, but it depends on a couple of things that we don't know, one of them being the supply. I've surmised on this channel that the Collector's Edition and International Edition markets are already pretty saturated with players. The way I see some of the cards track between Revised Edition and the Collector's Edition tells me that players are very active in that market already. Oh, this is from that gentleman, Andrew. He's the collector who, I had a video with his Vesuvan Doppelganger and his Mox Sapphire. He has very beautiful cards. I picked up most of his collection. Not all of it, but I picked up most of it. He was a pleasure to deal with. Bad Moon. Let's see. Pause the rant. Oh yeah, we're 18 minutes in. Sorry about that, guys. This probably is going to be a longer video, but like I said, there's a lot to talk about. A little bit of surface warping there, but nothing major. Oh, lovely rare. There are 10 of these on the market right now. Only one of them in near mint. It's a 9.5 in near mint. If I'm thinking of the right card, it's listed for $10,000. I'm pretty sure that's this. You can find it for between $1,200 and, you know, the $10,000. I couldn't find any recent sales on this card. It has a graded population of 128, and 58 of those are near mint condition. Love Bad Moon. And one of my favorites, good old Tudor. Right, so I believe the CE and IE market is not entirely a collector's market. I think there's a lot of player participation already. And so that means that this new set will inevitably reduce the demand on that market. It has to. And actually, as an aside, it's going to be kind of interesting to see if we can get any data out of that, because depending how the sort of playable reprints reprice versus the non-playable ones, it might actually give us some insight into what percentage of the market is players versus collectors. But in any case, there are definitely a lot of players in that market. And when those players have other options for cards that they want to play, some portion of them will take those options. And, I'm not saying they all will, so I'm not saying that there's going to be a crash. But inevitably, when your demand pool shrinks, economics will insist that the prices correct down. So I do expect to see some of that. But what about ABU? What about alpha? Well, I've said before, I think alpha is pretty much immune to this sort of thing. We've seen already cards like Shivan Dragon, Serra Angel, Birds of Paradise. These cards have reprints. Some of them, 15-cent reprints. And it doesn't affect these cards because these are valuable primarily for their collectability and only secondarily for their playability. And that inverts as you get further away from alpha. But alpha cards, this is not a competing product this 30th anniversary. So I don't see really any change occurring here. The players that want alpha want it because it's alpha. They're not going to care that there's now some other option. And the collectors that want the alpha want the alpha for the exact same reason. So alpha, I think, is safe. Beta, I would say the impact's going to be very minimal for the same reasons. Now, again, the further you move away from the original set, the more the proportions will change between primarily collectible and primarily playable. But beta, it's only the second set. For a very long time, it was sort of the principal set because it was legal. It was tournament legal. I don't see very much impact on beta at all. Another jump for the Horde. Ooh, this one's really well centered. This might actually be a binder upgrade on the jump. Come on, clean surface, come on. Oh yeah. Ooh. Okay, let me keep moving this along. Beautiful jump. All right, what about Unlimited and Revised? I do think there could be some impact here. I still think it's going to be minimal. And I think it would be specific to the cards that are reserved in those sets. So your duels, power, time vault, chaos orb, these sort of things. Some percentage of those cards are demanded by players. And generally speaking, players are going to seek the cheapest version of a card that's available, the cheapest printing that they can get to play. Obviously I'm simplifying. Many players are also collectors. But in broad strokes, player wants the card to be able to play with it. They're going to seek the cheapest one. For cards like the Power, Unlimited is the cheapest option for the legal sets. And Revised is the cheapest option for the dual lands. So, there is more player participation there, is what I'm getting at. But the alternatives of Collector's Edition and International Edition already exist. So it's not like this is creating a new competing class. We're really just adding supply to that alternative class of official proxy, or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, there's going to be more supply over there. If an impact is going to bleed over to the old stuff, it'll sort of be at that last printing, Revised Edition duels, Unlimited Power. But honestly, I still think we're talking minimal. And all right, so then that brings me to the third and final topic I wanted to hit for this video. And I will try to do that quickly. But that is, what does all this mean for the reserved list at large? Okay, so this is where I think there's some potentially interesting things that could happen. So first of all, I am on record warning that many people in this hobby take the reserve list for granted. Ooh, yes. I think unwisely so. I'm not I'm not a believer that they're planning to abolish it or anything like that, but I have long believed, and I've said on the channel, that it should not be discounted as a risk. You know, you have a precedent of them breaking it. You have a decade of judge foils. You have a previous example of them changing the list, you know, altering what was on it and giving reasons for it. But the bottom line there is wow. The bottom line there is we don't know why they're sticking with the reserve list. And because we can't give the reasons, you know, I have a whole video on some of the ones that people have surmised, but because we don't know the reasons, we shouldn't presume to judge when they would decide to make an exception or not, and what an exception might look like. Quick timeout just to admire this beautifully centered natural selection. This is another great rare. There are 9 of these on the market right now. 2 of them are in near mint. You can pick up a copy between 1,700 and 6,000 is what I'm seeing for the listed ones. Although the 2 recent sales I found were both lower than that. They were both nice condition, you know, LP plus near mint minus sort of cards. They both sold for 1,400, right in that range. But there aren't any more listed right now. Iconic art, beautiful card. The graded population on this guy is 155, and 75 of those are near mint. Love getting copies of him. Okay, so if this 30th edition thing sells well, it lets Wizards put their hands into the potential energy of the secondary market in a way that they very rarely can. And I think that's my main gripe here. If this product comes along, you know, comes out in November, whatever, and then we don't see anything else like it for another 30 years, I really have no complaints. I think they've priced it wrong, but I think it's cool. I think there's a very reasonable chance that it brings people sort of into the older cards again and exposes some people to the older art again. So yeah, I don't have any problem with that. But it opens a door, and Wizards has a pattern of, you know, testing things and then releasing them later, and then going a little too far with them before they correct. So, you know, just look at what happened with foils. Look at the history of foils with Magic cards. You know, jump starts, the concept of chase cards, textured cards, serialized cards. You know, they try things out, and then they kind of go with it. Rudy's pointed this out a bunch of times, and I think he's right. And so in that light, this could be seen as a frightening move. You know, what's the 35th anniversary going to look like? What's, you know, Mark Rosewater's 60th birthday special secret lair going to look like? Christopher Rush's, you know, 10-year commemorative passing secret lair, you know, whatever. The Arabian Nights Collector's Edition. The Urza's Block Collector's Edition. You know, they could come up with anything if they decided that this was a product line that worked. And, you know, let's just be clear. It'll be a product line that works in their eyes if it sells well. They're a company. We can have all the reservations we want about what it might do to the game in the secondary market, but if they make this anniversary thing and sell it, and this is a blowout product, why on earth wouldn't they make another one? You know? Of course they will. And, you know, before you say, hey, these aren't real cards. These aren't tournament legal cards. Don't read too far into it. Well, you know, okay, fair enough. I readily admit that I'm not a player, so I'm not as close to the pulse on this as perhaps I should be before commenting, but I don't know, my intuition tells me that that doesn't matter. I think 95% of Magic players never go near official tournament play. They just play with friends. You know, these cards are in a real sense authorized by Wizards, you know, they're real printed cards by Wizards. Everyone has their own rules, their own play group. And if nobody in a particular group has any power cards that they can afford, why would they insist on banning these within the group, you know? What's the reason? And the fact that the CE and IE market is, well penetrated by players is kind of a testament to that. And so that last example is really my biggest concern, the silver age of Magic. As I mentioned, I think there's a relationship. I think there's a relationship that sort of plays inversely, moving away from the original sets. You sort of see me drawing with my fingers, but you've got sort of a maximum collectability and playability, and the two sort of invert. That's an oversimplification, of course, but by the time you get to the Silver Age, I think that collectability sort of has an exponential drop with a plateau. It doesn't reach zero. There's a lot of collectability in the Urza's block stuff, for sure, and there's spikes in that. But I think that market becomes dominated by players. I think if there was, say, a collector's edition of Gaia's Cradle that was printed, they already have the Judge foil, I believe. If there was now also a collector's edition, I could see that being quite damaging to that card in a way that these 30th anniversary ones just won't be to the Alpha cards. And, I am guessing, but I did look around a bit to try to get a sense of this. And one card I found was Metalworker. Oh, another jump. What the hell is wrong with me, man? Take a look at Metalworker. You can pull it up on TCG Player. And then you can look at the sales history box. So there's a gold bordered version. It's the championship deck version. And, ooh, what happened to this guy? I wonder if that happened during shipping. Oh yeah, this guy got beat up. That's too bad. Pull up the gold bordered Metalworker on TCG Player and look at all the sales since September 1st. And I'm recording this October 5th. So if you look at all those sales, I count 30 of them, and the price range is $15 to $20. 30 copies of that card sold. Now switch over to the Urza's Destiny version, the legal version, the official version. Same date, September 1st. 66 sales between $100 and $150. 30 sales on the non-tournament legal version of the card, which is much cheaper, close to a tenth of the price. 66 sales on the official card. That means a third of all buyers were happy with the non-legal version. Only 2/3 thought it was important enough to get the legit version. That is a huge market divide. If, Gaia's Cradle from the Urza's Collector's set hit the market and it pulled a third of the demand away from the Urza Saga card, I'm not sure there's enough collectors to support the current price. And so it just makes sense you're going to see it hit there. That's all a big if. That's if they go do all this stuff. And, who knows? That's obviously getting pretty far down the road, talking about those kind of things. And, eventually it would mean destroying their game. If you have a deck of all legitimate cards and you have one proxy for an expensive card that you just can't afford, who cares? But if it gets to a point where almost your whole deck is made up of these different non-legal cards, well, I don't think that's something they would want. But, we have seen that they tend to go too far before they correct back to the right amount. So, it's a possibility. But, just to be completely blunt here at the end, this risk that we're talking about here is not new at all. It's the exact same risk that's, you should have onboarded when you entered the hobby right from the beginning. The moment you decided to rely on the reserved list, you onboarded risk that they could someday find a way to destroy it. I am not saying that day has come. I don't yet believe that it has, I actually am trying to say that to lower the temperature a small amount. I don't think that this is as dramatic of a situation as people think in and of itself. Again, if they do actually keep doing this and they start establishing a precedent of, repeatedly going down the line here, then yeah, I actually do think we're going to have a problem. Maybe not with alpha cards, but the Silver Age could be in trouble if they decided to do that. But, I don't think they will. What the hell do I know? But I don't think they will. So, yeah, I say it all the time. I said it in my reserve list video. I'll say it now. This stuff is speculative. This stuff is risky. Don't invest money if you aren't able and willing to lose it. And don't do it if you don't love this stuff. If you're just looking for a way to, get a return on investment, an S&P 500 fund is super easy. This is for the stuff that you love and you care about and that makes you happy. And yeah, it can make you money over time too. At least it has, It can be fun to speculate in. But it is not risk-free. And these moves by wizards don't necessarily signal an immediate problem, but they could. They are signs in a longer list of signs, spanning back to really when they started the judge foils. It's signs in a longer list of signs that could indicate a problem down the road. So something to track, to pay attention to. I'm most worried right now about CE and IE. Otherwise, I'm not terribly worried. And I guess we'll see how this thing sells. Because if it's a flop, then we don't have to worry about any of this. If this is a flop, they're not going to try entering into this again. So that's my hot take on these developments. Hopefully some of that was useful. As always, what the hell do I know? Don't listen to me. Just a guy yammering away. And man, what a take in the background, huh? Thanks for watching today's video. The easiest way to tell me that you liked it is by submitting a review to Rotten Tomatoes. See you next time.